I just want to say a couple words about the learning journey, because this is part of being the stranger, is actually taking the journey. And there's 3 stages of the journey. This isn't something I made up. This is somehow printed in our DNA. The call, which is the preparatory stage. And also the interesting thing to note is that in the call stage, classically the hero or heroine always resists at least 3 times. And one of the things I've discovered is how much information there is in the resistance. So we are called. Everybody in this room has been, will be, is called. And to note your resistance to the call. And actually, my students, when we were having a discussion about this one day, really, I was stunned at how quickly they came up with all the things that cause us to resist. It might not be worth it. I'm not good enough. I might fail. And so we all have a story going that keeps us often from taking the journey, from answering the call. The journey itself is what I would call the social emotional learning phase. We talk about social emotional learning. Well, let me tell you, that's a full body engagement. Mind, body, feelings, senses. And that's where this unexpected process occurs, this alchemy of being on the journey and meeting with strangers and being the stranger and being greeted at the margins of different communities, and how powerful that is, how life-changing that is. So the part that usually gets left out in the educational experience is the return. We have diminished those to exams. Did you learn what we expected you to learn? But the return, this is also from Sabanfu Same. Vivian and I were having dinner with her one night, and she said, it's the job of the village to welcome you back from an initiatory experience. Otherwise, what results is isolation, alienation, and depression. And so when you've gone through an experience, it's very important then that you come back and you get asked the right questions. What did you do is not the right question. What did you see is not the right question. So the question, how were you touched and moved? How were you delighted? Where were you challenged? And so this is something we're supposed to do for each other when we note that somebody has gone through an initiatory experience or we've been through one ourselves. So these are the 3 basic stages of the classic hero's journey: the call, the journey itself, and the return. And that process of being the stranger, of meeting strangers and being welcomed by communities, reorients ourselves to the whole notion of the stranger and the gift that might be coming in to the community through the stranger, including the gift that you're bringing to the community that's not already there. And so one of the questions that came up in the dialogue that we had prior to this was, what are the stories that would allow me to reconnect my strangeness to the community from which I feel isolated? That one just caught me. What are the stories that would allow me to reconnect my strangeness to the community from which I feel isolated? Now, you're not supposed to do anything with that. I just thought that was such a cool question. Going to my own experience of at times feeling isolated from my own community by my strangeness, what was different. And then some other ancillary questions that you're also not supposed to do anything with, but I think are useful in the context of the learning journey, which is, what is the question that's calling me? What am I really curious about? What's my resistance? So much information in the resistance. What's the story that no longer serves me? What are the learning or liberating conversations that would have the effect of reuniting me with my community? And what's my value as a stranger? So the learning journey is something, this year for me, it deeply connects to this notion of stone soup. the questions that are calling us, the questions that we bring into the community, sometimes that are not accepted by the community. Questions are destabilizing. And the village really is stability. It's the status quo. And as long as everybody is fed and feeling nourished, change is very difficult. It's only when we reach a point where we've hit a forcing function, where things aren't working, and then we open up to new possibilities. How could we actually have a community that had as part of its aesthetic constant renewal and openness to possibility, along with the stability of a community that was viable, that was stable? How can we have both of those things working together? So that in a moment is the learning journey to which I'm sure everybody could add. And Vivian, back to you, my dear.